The doorbell rang, piercing the quiet of the suburban neighborhood. Karen stormed up the driveway, her face flushed with rage. She pounded on the door, fist striking the wood with a dull thud. Inside, Sarah glanced nervously at her husband James. "She's really worked up this time," he muttered, peering through the window blinds. Reluctantly, Sarah opened the door, bracing herself. "Hello, Karen. What seems to be the problem?" "The problem?" Karen's voice rose to a shrill pitch. "The problem is your husband tossing my recyclables in the trash again." James stepped forward, jaw set. "Karen, we've been over this. I only put out the correct bins on collection day. Maybe the neighbors." "Don't give me that." Karen stabbed an accusatory finger at him. "I saw you with my own eyes. You're ruining the whole neighborhood's efforts." Sarah raised a placating hand. "Look, let's all just take a deep breath." "No." Karen whirled to face her. "This has gone on long enough. I'm filing a formal complaint with the HOA. You two are going to pay for your selfishness." With that, she spun on her heel and marched back down the driveway, purse swinging furiously. Sarah closed the door, shoulders slumped. "Oh no, James. What are we going to do?" James wrapped an arm around her. "Don't worry, honey. We'll figure this out." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That evening, the couple sat at the kitchen table, poring over stacks of HOA bylaws and community guidelines. It says here that improper recycling can result in fines or even suspension of HOA privileges. Sarah's brow furrowed with concern. Karen's really going to push this, isn't she? "I'm not surprised." James sighed. "You know how she is, always looking for ways to flex her HOA muscle. And of course, she'll exaggerate everything to make us look as bad as possible." Sarah nibbled her lip. "Do you think we should try talking to her again? Maybe we can reason with her." James shook his head. "Not a chance. You know how stubborn she is. Once Karen sets her mind to something, there's no changing it." "Well, we have to do something." Sarah's voice rose in frustration. "We can't just let her walk all over us like this." I know." James reached across the table, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "We'll fight this, I promise. But we need to be smart about it. No more escalating things with Karen. That's exactly what she wants." Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay, so what's the plan?" James leaned back, a determined glint in his eye. "I think it's time we start documenting everything. We need to have proof of what's really going on, in case this ends up going to the HOA board." "Good idea." Sarah straightened, her own expression hardening. "Let's make sure we've got everything covered. I'm not letting Karen bully us without a fight." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next morning, James stepped outside to retrieve the bins, carefully noting their contents. As he wheeled them back to the garage, he paused, glancing around furtively. Spotting a small security camera near the front door, a slow smile spread across his face. "Time to set a trap," he murmured, hurrying back inside. Later that day, Sarah answered a knock at the door to find Karen standing on the porch, a self-satisfied smirk on her face. "Good afternoon, Sarah." Karen's voice dripped with false sweetness. "I wanted to let you know that I filed the complaint with the HOA. They'll be in touch soon to discuss the appropriate disciplinary action." Sarah forced a polite smile. "I see. Well, thank you for informing us, Karen." "Oh, it's my civic duty." Karen waved a dismissive hand. "After all, we have to maintain the integrity of our community, don't we? I'm sure you and James understand." "Of course." Sarah's grip tightened on the doorknob. "We'll be sure to cooperate fully with the HOA investigation." "I'm sure you will." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Although, I do hope you'll take this seriously. Repeat offenses can result in some rather severe penalties." With that, she turned and strode back down the driveway, leaving Sarah to close the door, her heart pounding. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Later that evening, James gathered Sarah and their two children, Emily and Alex, in the living room. All right, everyone. I've got something to show you. He picked up a remote and clicked it, the TV flickering to life. On the screen, the front of their house was clearly visible, the security camera capturing a perfect view of the driveway and bins. I set up a hidden camera out front yesterday, James explained, just in case Karen decided to make good on her threat. Sarah's eyes widened. James, you're a genius. This is exactly what we need to prove our innocence. Emily leaned forward, eyes glued to the screen. So we're going to catch Karen in the act, right? James nodded. That's the plan. If she tries to tamper with our bins again, we'll have it all on video. Alex frowned. But what if she doesn't come back? What if she just leaves us alone now? That's a good point, buddy. James reached over to ruffle his son's hair. But knowing Karen, she's not going to let this go. She's too determined to make us the bad guys. Sarah sighed. I just wish there was another way to handle this. I don't like the idea of spying on our neighbor, even if she is being unreasonable. I know, honey. James wrapped an arm around her shoulders. But sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, especially when it comes to people like Karen. We can't let her bully us into submission. Emily leaned back, a mischievous grin on her face. So when do we get to see the video? James chuckled. Well, I've set it to record 24/7, just in case. So we'll just have to wait and see if Karen decides to make another appearance. The family fell silent, all eyes glued to the screen as they waited, the tension palpable in the room. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Over the next few days, the Millers kept a close watch on the security footage, but Karen remained conspicuously absent. Just as Alex had predicted, she seemed to have backed off, at least for the moment. Sarah let out a sigh of relief. Maybe she's realized she's not going to win this one. James shook his head. I doubt it. Karen's the type to hold a grudge. She's probably just biding her time, waiting for the right moment to strike again. As if on cue, the doorbell rang, and the family exchanged a wary glance. Sarah reluctantly opened the door to find Karen standing on the porch, her expression pinched with irritation. Good afternoon, Sarah. Karen's voice was strained. Is James home? I need to speak with him. Sarah hesitated, then stepped aside. Yes, he's in the living room. Please come in. As Karen swept past her, Sarah caught a glimpse of a thick envelope clutched in the woman's hand. Bracing herself, she followed Karen into the living room, where James and the children were waiting. Karen. James nodded coolly. What can we do for you? Karen thrust the envelope at him. I've received a letter from the HOA. They're demanding a meeting to discuss your flagrant disregard for our community's recycling policies. James took the envelope, his expression calm. I see. And what exactly do they want to discuss? What do you think? Karen's voice rose sharply. They're considering fines and other disciplinary actions against you. Sarah stepped forward, placing a hand on James' arm. Karen, we've already told you that we're following the proper procedures. There must be some misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Karen scoffed. There's no misunderstanding. Your husband has been deliberately sabotaging our recycling efforts, and the HOA is going to make you pay for it. James held up a hand. Now hold on. We have security footage that proves. Security footage. Karen's eyes widened, then narrowed to slits. You've been spying on me. We've been documenting what's really happening, James corrected calmly. And I think you'll find that the footage tells a very different story than the one you've been peddling to the HOA. Karen's face flushed with anger. How dare you? This is an invasion of my privacy. Your privacy. James shook his head. Karen, you're the one who's been harassing us and making false accusations. We have every right to protect ourselves. Protect yourselves. Karen's voice rose to a shrill pitch. You're the ones who need to be protected from the consequences of your actions. Sarah stepped between them, hands raised placatingly. Look, Karen, let's all just take a deep breath in. No, Karen cut her off. I'm not going to let you twist this around. You and your husband are going to pay for what you've done, and the HOA is going to make sure of it. With that, she turned and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. The family stood in stunned silence, the tension palpable in the air. Finally, Emily broke the silence. Wow, she's really mad, isn't she? James sighed heavily. Yeah, I'd say that's an understatement. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, a worried frown creasing her brow. Do you think she's going to make good on her threat? James pulled her close, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. I don't know, honey, but we're going to be ready for her, no matter what she tries to pull. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. In the days that followed, the Miller family waited anxiously for the HOA meeting, their eyes constantly scanning the security footage for any sign of Karen's return. But the neighborhood remained eerily quiet, the only activity the occasional jogger or dog walker passing by. Just when they were starting to let their guard down, the doorbell rang once more, and the tension in the air immediately thickened. Sarah hesitated, then slowly opened the door, bracing herself. This time, it wasn't Karen, but a stern-faced man in a suit. Good afternoon. I'm Mr. Sinclair, the president of the HOA. He extended a hand. I believe you've been expecting me. Sarah shook his hand, her own trembling slightly. Yes, of course. Please come in. As Mr. Sinclair stepped inside, James and the children emerged from the living room, expressions wary. Thank you for meeting with me on such short notice, Mr. Sinclair said, his gaze sweeping over the family. I'm sure you can understand the gravity of the situation. James nodded, his jaw set. Of course. Please, have a seat. Once they were all settled in the living room, Mr. Sinclair cleared his throat. I'll get right to the point. Karen Sinclair has filed a formal complaint against you, alleging that you've been repeatedly violating our community's recycling policies. Sarah felt a lump rise in her throat. But we've done nothing wrong. We always follow the proper procedures. Be that as it may, Mr. Sinclair said, the HOA has an obligation to investigate any and all complaints. And I'm afraid the evidence provided by Karen is rather compelling. James leaned forward, his expression hardening. With all due respect, sir, I think you should take a look at the evidence we have as well. He gestured to the TV, where the security footage was queued up and ready to play. Mr. Sinclair raised a hand. I appreciate you taking the time to document this, but I'm afraid I can't accept any unauthorized recordings as evidence. Unauthorized? James scoffed. This is our own private property. We have every right to monitor what's happening on our own driveway. That may be true, Mr. Sinclair conceded, but the HOA has a strict policy against the use of surveillance equipment for the purposes of community disputes. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to remove the camera. Sarah's heart sank. But how else are we supposed to prove our innocence? Mr. Sinclair fixed her with a solemn gaze. I understand your concerns, Mrs. Miller, but the HOA has a responsibility to maintain the integrity of our community. And based on the information we've received, it appears that you and your husband have been deliberately undermining our recycling efforts. That's not true. Emily burst out, her eyes wide with indignation. Dad always puts the right bins out, and Karen's the one who's been messing with them. Mr. Sinclair raised a hand. I understand your frustration, young lady, but the decision has been made. The HOA is issuing a warning, and if there are any further incidents, you'll face escalating fines and potential suspension of your HOA privileges. James opened his mouth to protest, but Mr. Sinclair cut him off. I'm sorry, but my mind is made up. The HOA has spoken, and I expect your full cooperation moving forward. With that, He stood and made his way to the door, leaving the Miller family in stunned silence. As the door closed behind Mr. Sinclair, the silence in the room was deafening. The children looked to their parents, faces etched with worry. Sarah turned to James, her expression a mix of disbelief and anger. "I can't believe they're siding with Karen on this, after everything we've done to prove our innocence." James ran a hand through his hair, his brow furrowed. "I know, honey. I'm just as shocked as you are." He glanced over at the kids. "But we can't let this get us down. We're going to keep fighting, no matter what." Emily spoke up, her voice trembling. "But what if they really do suspend our HOA privileges? We won't be able to use the community pool or the tennis courts." James reached over and squeezed her hand. "We'll cross that bridge if we come to it, Em. For now, we just need to focus on finding a way to show the HOA the truth." Alex piped up, his eyes wide. "Maybe we could go to the news. They'd have to listen to us then, right?" Sarah shook her head. "I don't think that's a good idea, sweetie. That could just make things worse with the HOA." "She's right." James sighed. "We need to play by their rules, at least for now. But that doesn't mean we're giving up." The family fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Sarah spoke up, her voice determined. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. James, you're going to take the camera down, just like Mr. Sinclair said. But we're going to keep the footage, just in case." James nodded. "Good idea. And in the meantime, we'll start documenting everything else. The times we take the bins out, any interactions with Karen, anything that could help prove our case." "Right." Sarah turned to the kids. "Emily, Alex, I need you two to keep an eye on the neighborhood, especially when it comes to recycling day. If you see Karen or anyone else tampering with the bins, I want you to let us know right away." The children nodded, their expressions serious. "And we'll all need to be on our best behavior," Sarah continued. "No more confrontations with Karen, no matter how much she tries to provoke us. We can't give the HOA any more ammunition against us." James reached over and squeezed her hand. "You got it, honey. We're in this together, no matter what." The family fell silent once more, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. But there was a glimmer of determination in their eyes, a resolve to fight this battle and emerge victorious. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. In the days that followed, the Millers kept a vigilant watch over their neighborhood. Emily and Alex reported dutifully on any recycling-related activity, while James and Sarah meticulously documented every interaction with Karen. But the woman remained surprisingly elusive, her presence conspicuously absent from the driveway and the community at large. "Do you think she's finally backed off?" Sarah asked one evening as they reviewed their notes. James shook his head, doubtful. "Karen's the type to bide her time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We need to stay on our toes." Sarah nodded, her expression grim. "I just hope we can hold out long enough to prove our innocence. I don't know how much more of this we can take." The tension in the Miller household was palpable as the days dragged on. Every knock at the door sent Sarah's heart racing, and the children jumped at the slightest sound. But true to James' prediction, Karen remained conspicuously absent, leaving the family to wonder when the other shoe would drop. One morning, as Sarah was preparing breakfast, the sound of the doorbell jolted her from her thoughts. Steeling herself, she peered through the window and was surprised to see a young woman in a crisp uniform standing on the porch. "Can I help you?" Sarah asked cautiously as she opened the door. The woman smiled warmly. "Good morning, ma'am. I'm Officer Tran from the local police department. I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions." Sarah's brow furrowed. "The police? What's this about?" "It's regarding a report of vandalism in the neighborhood," Officer Tran explained. "We've received several complaints about recycling bins being tampered with, and your name was mentioned as a potential witness." Sarah's heart sank. "Oh, I see. Please come in." As Officer Tran stepped inside, James and the children emerged from the kitchen, their expressions wary. "What's going on?" James asked, his voice tense. Officer Tran turned to him. "Mr. Miller, I'm Officer Tran with the local police department. I was hoping you and your family could provide some information about the recent incidents of recycling bin tampering in the neighborhood." James exchanged a glance with Sarah, his jaw set. "Of course, officer. How can we help?" Over the next half hour, the family recounted their ongoing battle with Karen and the HOA, carefully detailing the events that had led to the current situation. Officer Tran listened intently, her brow furrowed. "I see. So you're saying that your neighbor, Karen Sinclair, has been the one tampering with your recycling bins?" Sarah nodded emphatically. "Yes, that's exactly right. We have security footage that proves it, but the HOA refused to accept it as evidence." Officer Tran's expression darkened. "That's concerning. Tampering with someone's property, even if it's just recycling bins, is a serious offense." James leaned forward, his eyes hopeful. "Does that mean you can do something about it, officer?" Officer Tran raised a hand. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. Without the HOA's cooperation, it's going to be difficult to pursue any criminal charges. And since the incidents have taken place on private property, there's only so much we can do." Sarah's shoulders slumped in disappointment. "So what can we do?" "Well, the best thing you can do is to continue documenting everything," Officer Tran advised. "Keep track of any interactions with Karen, and if she tampers with your bins again, make sure to call us right away." James nodded slowly. "Okay, we can do that. But what about the HOA? Isn't there anything you can do to get them to listen to us?" Officer Tran shook her head regretfully. "I'm afraid the HOA is a private entity, and they have a lot of leeway when it comes to enforcing their own rules and policies. Unless there's clear evidence of criminal wrongdoing, there's not much we can do to intervene." The Millers sat in dejected silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. "So we're just supposed to keep taking it?" Emily finally spoke up, her voice small. Officer Tran offered a sympathetic smile. "I know it's frustrating, but the best thing you can do is to stay vigilant and continue to document everything. Hopefully, that will eventually help you get the HOA to see the truth." With that, she rose to her feet, her expression somber. "I wish I could do more, but for now, this is the best advice I can give you. Good luck, and don't hesitate to call if you need anything else." As the officer departed, the Millers exchanged a grim look, the realization sinking in that they were on their own in this battle against Karen and the HOA. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity for the Miller family. With renewed determination, they set about documenting every interaction with Karen, no matter how small. Sarah diligently recorded the times she saw Karen tampering with her recycling bins, while James meticulously logged any calls or messages exchanged with the HOA. Emily and Alex kept a watchful eye on the neighborhood, ready to alert their parents at the first sign of trouble. But despite their efforts, Karen remained elusive, her presence conspicuously absent from the driveway and the community at large. "I don't get it," Sarah said one evening as they reviewed their notes. "Why hasn't she made another move? It's not like her to just back off like this." James shook his head, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. "I don't know, honey, but I can't shake the feeling that she's up to something." "You think she's planning something?" Sarah's voice trembled with apprehension. "I'm not sure." James reached across the table, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "But whatever it is, we'll be ready for her. We've got everything documented, and the police are on our side, even if the HOA isn't." Sarah nodded, her expression determined. "You're right. We can't let her get the better of us, not after everything we've been through." Just then, the doorbell rang, shattering the relative calm. Sarah and James exchanged a wary glance, their hearts pounding. "I'll get it," James said, rising to his feet. As he approached the door, he peered through the window, his brow furrowing. It's the HOA president, Mr. Sinclair. Sarah's eyes widened. What could he want? James shrugged and opened the door. Mr. Sinclair, what can we do for you? The HOA president's expression was unreadable as he stepped inside. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. I'm afraid I have some rather concerning news to share with you. Sarah felt a lump rise in her throat. What is it? Mr. Sinclair cleared his throat, his gaze shifting uncomfortably. It appears that there has been a significant breach in our community's security system. Several of our surveillance cameras have been tampered with, and, well, the footage they'd captured is quite troubling. James stiffened, his jaw clenching. What are you saying, Mr. Sinclair? The HOA president fixed them with a somber look. I'm saying that the evidence seems to indicate that you and your family have been deliberately sabotaging the community's recycling efforts. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. That's not true. We've been. I'm afraid the evidence speaks for itself, Mr. Sinclair interrupted. The HOA has no choice but to take disciplinary action. You and your family are hereby suspended from all HOA privileges, effective immediately. James shot to his feet, his eyes blazing with fury. This is outrageous. You can't do this without even giving us a chance to defend ourselves. Mr. Sinclair held up a hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, but the decision has been made. The HOA board has reviewed the footage, and they're satisfied that you and your family are the ones responsible for the recycling bin tampering. Sarah felt a wave of despair wash over her. But what about the security camera we had? Didn't that show the truth? Mr. Sinclair shook his head, his expression grim. I'm afraid that footage was deemed inadmissible, as it was obtained without the HOA's consent. The Millers sat in stunned silence, the realization sinking in that they had been dealt a devastating blow. The air in the room was thick with tension as the Millers struggled to process Mr. Sinclair's bombshell. Sarah felt a surge of panic, her mind racing to find a way out of this nightmare. This can't be happening, she whispered, her voice trembling. We've done everything we can to prove our innocence. James clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. This is a travesty of justice. Where's the evidence you're talking about, Mr. Sinclair? The HOA president's expression remained stoic. I'm afraid I can't share the specifics of the footage with you, as it's part of an ongoing HOA investigation. But I can assure you that the board has reviewed it thoroughly and found it to be conclusive. Sarah shook her head vehemently. No, this isn't right. You have to give us a chance to. I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller, but the decision has been made. Mr. Sinclair raised a hand, cutting her off. The suspension of your HOA privileges is effective immediately. You and your family will no longer be allowed to use any of the community amenities or attend HOA events. Emily, who had been silent up until that point, suddenly spoke up, her voice trembling with outrage. But that's not fair. We didn't do anything wrong. Mr. Sinclair's gaze softened slightly. I understand your frustration, Emily. But the HOA has a responsibility to maintain order and uphold the rules of our community. And in this case, the evidence simply doesn't support your family's claims. Alex, the youngest, stared up at the HOA president with wide, pleading eyes. But what about the pool? I was looking forward to swimming with my friends this summer. Mr. Sinclair's expression darkened. I'm afraid that's no longer an option. The suspension includes the loss of all community privileges, including the use of the pool and other amenities. James slammed his fist on the table, his face contorted with rage. This is unacceptable. You're punishing us for something we didn't do, and you won't even give us a chance to defend ourselves. Mr. Sinclair held up a hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, but the decision has been made. The HOA board is not willing to reconsider, and there's nothing more I can do. With that, he turned and headed for the door, leaving the Millers in a state of stunned disbelief. As the door closed behind him, the family sat in silence, the weight of their defeat crushing them. After a long moment, Sarah reached out and pulled Emily and Alex into a tight embrace, her own tears mingling with theirs. "I'm so sorry, kids," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I wish there was something we could do, but it seems like we're out of options." James sat back, his expression grim. "Not quite, honey. We may have lost this battle, but we're not going down without a fight." Sarah looked up, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "What do you mean?" James leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with determination. "I think it's time we take this to the next level. If the HOA won't listen to us, then we'll just have to find someone who will." The Millers exchanged a charged look, the air thick with the promise of a final, desperate stand against the injustice they had faced.